a list of many, think let's see it grow. Like a ride, oh, not easily offended.
So we're kind of looking again at this, is inflation bad? And we've kind of talked about this first idea, first potential problem, whatever, of purchasing power. And, you know, again, history, data, whatever, tells us for the most part, maybe the mid-2000s were a little rough, but for the most part, we've done pretty good in the now. For the most part, wages increased faster than the inflation rate, especially lately. Again, a little blip in the mid-2000s, but since really the 1980s, that's been true. Maybe we haven't done great on the future because our interest rates have been so low that any positive inflation number effectively means less future purchasing power. And that's been relatively constant, true since, again, probably the late 80s, early 90s. So we want to kind of talk about some other inflation problems as well. And these are more or less mappy kind of based, but more of just kind of thought problems. So other problems with inflation. So the book talks about some of these different problems. I actually think we're starting to jump into chapter 7 now because I think that's where they're talking about some of these other problems. And one of the ones that the book mentions is the idea of menu cost. So let me give that a quick definition. Menu cost refers to the cost to firms of changing prices. Menu cost refers to the cost of firms of changing prices. Okay, so kind of now like just, you know, we'll do where the terminology comes from and then maybe tie in a better story. So just kind of the terminology, obviously we see menu, and you see menu that probably makes you think of a restaurant, right? And because you go and you sit down, they give you the menu, it's got all the prices on there. Well, what happens if we have a lot of inflation? If we have a lot of inflation, those prices are all going to change. Now, if it's only a couple of minor changes, you know, how do restaurants deal with it a lot? I see a little sticker over a price with a new number written on. But what if it's everything that has to change, right? We're having broad inflation in society. Well, if that's the case, our restaurant they just have to go and print new menus. That printing of a new menu is a cost that the restaurant is incurring that really isn't geared towards their production, right? It's not, you know, buying more food or the gas that they use on the stove to cook the food or whatever. It's not a cost geared towards production at all. It's strictly a cost that is being absorbed by the firm because we've had inflation. Okay, so now let's kind of maybe make this a little bit more relative now that the story is there to kind of maybe other business practices. So you are legally required to make your customers aware of price change. You can't change a price on a customer without notifying them. There's a lot of states have different fraud laws, bait and switch laws, all kinds of laws that effectively protect customers from price change. In fact, we're learning from, Tennessee, where we had the guy selling hand sanitizer. A lot of states also have price gouging laws, right? There's a lot of rules about how prices are made known to customers and how they have to be changed and how customers have to be notified. So what if your company doesn't use a menu like a restaurant? Well, you still have to notify all your customers of a price change. Maybe this means you have an employee that has to, maybe they get on the phone and they call all of their clients and notify them, which is, again, taking away from their productive capability to do something else. You're paying them their hourly or whatever wage to do something else. Or maybe it's someone going into all the invoices and changing it online or drafting new invoices, or somehow one of your employees or some of your capital is going to be utilized instead of engaging in production. It's going to be used to engage in notification of price change. And so that's kind of where we see that menu cost as a broad cost to society, not one that's captured in production cost, but one that firms have to absorb. Okay, so that's one that the book talks about. The next one is called shoe leather. Shoe leather cost. I don't know if this one really has as much of a definition as more of a kind of a story. So let me give you again kind of the backstory, which I will be honest, the backstory is irrelevant in today's day and age, but then we'll speed it up and make it a little bit more relevant for today, future, etc. So the idea of shoe leather cost, this is the cost of engaging in transactions from banks. So shoe leather, if we go back to when this phrase was coined in the early 1900s. In the early 1900s, just like today, if people had extra money from their income, they would store that money in a bank savings account. It's safer than leaving it lying around your house, whatever. Well, let's say that you take your income, you go and you say, all right, well, I need to buy groceries this week, and whatever income I have left, I'm going to go put in the savings account. Bought my groceries, great. Then the week is over, you need to go buy more stuff. So you got to go to the bank, get money out, buy more stuff. Well, what would be happening if we're having rapid price change? You're probably going to have to make more and more and more trips to the bank to go get money out of savings to buy stuff. And effectively, those trips to the bank are going to wear out your shoes faster. This is where the term came from. Again, early 1900s, we walked to the bank. So shoe leather cost effectively was the cost of you having to keep constantly going to the bank to get money out to make those transactions. It wears out your shoes. You have to go buy new shoes. So again, an increase in a consumer cost that's not related to the actual product. It's just related to having to get more and more money. All right, so fast forward, that's kind of, again, where the term came from. Fast forward to today. Is this one still relevant? Well, maybe not as relevant as it was in the early 1900s. I don't think any of us are walking to our bank at all. In fact, most of us probably aren't driving to our bank. I'm an adult, and I grew up without, all the electronic banking and electronic transactions. And even me, I might go to my bank physically, I don't know, once every couple of months. Probably, I bet you I went before Christmas to probably get some cash out for Christmas stuff. I don't even remember though. I don't think I did that, honestly. So very rarely. So does this cost just not exist anymore? Well, no, I think that it still exists. It's just a little different. We're still engaged in more time and transactions if there is more rapid price change. If there's more rapid price change, we have to alter our spending habits. We have to go in line and change our electronic withdrawals. We have to go and change our automated payments. It's still time that's taken away from you doing something else. So it's still a social cost, if you will, because you could be doing something else, but instead you're having to do extra electronic banking. So I think maybe the term is definitely outdated, but the idea of that social cost, it does seem to still exist in society. So I think it's definitely at least one that we can talk about briefly there. Okay, so the next one, I'm going to have to walk over to the computer because I see how to spell it. Sorry. It's seignorage. S-E-I-G. Okay, S-E-I-G. There we go. S-E-I-G-N-O-R-A-G-E. Seignorage. It's a French term. So here, I'll give you the French term and then we'll actually get the definition. So seignorage, it effectively means it's French for the right of the Lord. And by Lord, it doesn't mean like Lord, God, Lord. It means Lord like a landowner. So in medieval France, it was the right of landowners to print money that would be utilized in their fiefdom or whatever kind of area they would have. So they could print money for their domain. Okay, so now let's give the actual definition. Seignorage is the profit a government can make when printing money. The profit a government can make when printing money. So we're actually about ready to, this will be a good segue topic here momentarily, but we're actually about ready to go into learning about money and the types of money and everything like that, but this is kind of a good kind of thought process. So hypothetically, now the United States has a lot of checks and balances. The United States can't just print money and use it. There are checks and balances, but let's just put all those checks and balances on hold for now. We haven't learned about them yet anyway. So hypothetically, let's say that the United States starts printing some money. They print $20 bills. There is a production cost for making a $20 bill. It's measured in cents. You know, it doesn't cost very much to print a $20 bill, but there's that, you know, the special paper and the special ink and the machinery and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, let's just for simplicity say it cost $1, just easy math. So it cost the government $1 to print a $20 bill, which is worth $20. Effectively, the government, for doing nothing, just made a $20 profit. Right? Cost $1, but here's the 20 bucks. I'm going to buy something with it. So this problem we get with seigniorage is this incentive it creates for governments, that because the actual production cost of money is so low that they are really, really incentivized to print it and use it and say, hey, I'm going to print 20 bucks and I'm going to buy that and I'm going to buy that and I'm going to buy that. And if the government is printing all of this money to make its purchases, effectively it devalues money. And sellers are going to turn to the government first. Hey, you're paying 40 bucks. I'll take your 40 bucks. If any consumers want to buy it, yeah, you got to pay 40 bucks too. And it makes it a lot harder for consumers to really be able to kind of keep up in terms of outpacing the government in buying. It puts a lot of downward pressure on the value of any currency. So that could be a potential problem. And again, in the United States, we have a lot of checks and balances in place to prevent that, which isn't, you know, always the case all over the world. Venezuela right now, a country that is experiencing significant inflation. In fact, they're going to be on our list here in a minute under hyperinflation. They're experiencing significant inflation, and this is one of the big reasons for it, is the government has been printing money over and over and over to fund some military efforts. And they didn't have money through taxation, so they just printed it. And that devalued the currency so much that, again, they're engaged in hyperinflation, which is going to make our list here in just a moment. Okay, so next. Next I have is tax distortion. So this is another one that maybe I kind of will give a little bit of a story. We're not going to spend much time on this because we don't want to rise into that finance realm a lot here, but we'll at least mention it. So the idea of tax distortion is that when we get inflation, right, prices are going up, and as prices go up, firms are able to sell their product for a higher amount, which means more revenue. Hold off on cost. I know some of you are like, well, they have to pay more too. No, hold off on cost for a second. Just think about revenue. Price they sold, how many they sold. Firms start reporting more and more and more and more revenues with higher levels of inflation. Well, stock markets tend to like revenue. They like profit too, of course, but they really like revenue. And if companies are showing a rapid revenue boost, it probably is going to cause their stock price to go up. Again, that's just kind of a norm without jumping too much into the finance world. As their stock prices go up, the value of any held stocks goes up. So if you hold a whole bunch of stock in Amazon, Amazon is showing tremendous revenue right now because of the coronavirus. Everyone is having to order and ship everything because we're all afraid of the grocery store. So you're seeing this rapid increase in revenue, and if you're a holder in Amazon stock, hey, this is great. You're making more and more and more and more. You're holding more and more and more. Well, while this sounds like an entire positive, there's a drawback to this. So first of all, one kind of drawback element is that this stock increase may not be permanent. From a tax standpoint, they don't care, because this stock increase is going to be showing you as making additional income, even if it's not permanent. Part of your tax form that you will do every year when you get older, right now most of you probably don't have to worry about this, but there's something called capital gains tax, and it is the tax on profits from stock. So if your stock is showing some profit some year, you may end up having to pay a significant tax bump because of the capital gains. Now, with many taxes, and again, not trying to get into finance and accounting, with many taxes, that tax is transferred to all of your income. So like hypothetically, let's say that you were in the 25% income tax bracket, you have a stock that is showing tremendous growth, and then it bumps you into the 30% income tax bracket. You pay that 30% not only on the capital gains, the profit from your stocks, but on your original income as well. And if you were only having taxes held out on your check based on kind of a 25%, that's what your W-4 is, it's kind of a guess on how much you should have held out, what's going to end up happening at the end of the year? At the end of the year, you're going to owe the government a lot of money. And a lot of times people aren't prepared for that, and it is a significant challenge. So that could be an issue. Okay, and then our last one here that we want to put on, anytime you have inflation, there is at least the risk of hyperinflation. So we'll give a very bad definition for this, but a definition nonetheless. Hyperinflation occurs when the inflation rate is considerably high, for a considerably long period of time. Yeah, that's it. That's the definition. We have high inflation for a long time. What does considerably high mean? We don't actually have an exact answer for that. And we also don't have an exact answer for a considerably long period of time. What if you have 250% inflation, but it's only for 3 weeks? Okay, that's probably not going to be long enough. We're not going to call that hyperinflation. What if you have 10% inflation every month for 16 years? Well, that may not be high enough as a percent. Maybe we won't call that hyperinflation. What if you have 25% inflation for 1 year? Well, that might be sufficiently high enough and long enough. Maybe we'll call that hyperinflation. Yeah, we don't have an exact idea here. There are a couple of benchmarks. 50% inflation usually is a benchmark. If you start getting above that 50%, we're definitely looking at it. Time-wise, a year is probably a benchmark. Anything less than that, we may not look at it as hyperinflation. We don't see a lot of hyperinflation around the world. The textbook talks about Germany and Zimbabwe. I'll get them after we stop this video. About their hyperinflation that they've undergone. Currently in the world today, Venezuela is they have hyperinflation. They've been having inflation rates in the 200% range for a while. And we actually think the Ukraine, but we don't get great data. The Ukraine is not really wanting to share their data. The data that they share with the world is under 50%. They're saying it's around 25% inflation. But with traders that are engaged in commerce in the Ukraine a lot, they're saying the inflation rate's probably a little closer to 100 to 200%. And it has been for a while. So probably Ukraine is having a hyperinflation event going on right now. So what is the problem? Clearly the problem is it is very, very, very significantly devalues your currency. Again, in chapter 7, there's a great story on Germany following the World War. That it was cheaper for people to burn money than buy firewood. Firewood costs so much. It was huge piles of money. They were like, why don't we just burn the money? We'll save some. It'll be cheaper. So yeah, there's stories kind of like that it devalues your currency so much that it takes massive sums to be able to purchase anything.